So a little while ago, I did a video talking about how I think Davy D. Jones and Joy Boy were the same person. And now today we have a follow-up video talking about some more evidence or some more themes that could point to that being the case. So, based on what we know now, and spoilers for the Elbaf arc, spoilers, but we now know that Rox D. Zebek is actually Davy D. Zebek, and it's being highly suggested that Davy D. Jones is the guy who devised the whole event of the Davy backfight. So for Zebek, it's not only a cool way to build up one's crew with strong people, but it's a bit of a family tradition because he's a part of the Davy clan. With all that being said, when you look at the arc itself in the present, some very interesting themes arise. First off, this is the first time that Luffy's hair changes in the series. This could be seen as a foreshadowing to Nika in the future once he unlocks the power of the human fruit model Nika, as that is the only other time in the series where Luffy's hair goes through a significant transformation. Not only that, but much like the afro giving him power, as that being the joke, his hair in Gear 5th actually does give him power because he can pull objects out of his hair and manifest them into the real world. Another interesting point to this is that when you look on his chest, he has this very cool press-on tattoo. It's a fake tattoo. And said tattoo has a skull with a flaming hairstyle. And under that skull, there is an X. So it's meant to look like a Jolly Roger. But breaking these themes down, you see that the X becomes an actual permanent aspect of his design in the post-time skip after the War of the Best in Marineford. The skull could be another reference to Nika because as Nika in Gear 5th, Luffy does develop a hair of clouds, and that hair of clouds is a big signifier to him being Nika, as Nika is described in being covered in clouds. So yes, I think the Afro Luffy costume is foreshadowing what will happen to Luffy further down the line in the Wano arc when he becomes Nika after unlocking Gear 5th. But what's so important about Afro Luffy in particular is because this costume is donned during a boxing match. Boxing is important here because not only is Foxy a former boxer, but boxing has always been a part of the Davy backfights, because during a montage segment of the various Davy backfights Rox D. Zebek has been in, we see him donning boxing gloves and knocking a guy out. So if he's doing it, and the Davy backfights are presumably a family tradition started by his ancestor Davy D. Jones, it's quite curious now when you parallel that to the actual Davy backfight arc in which Luffy dons this special costume, which all could just be foreshadowings to Nika, as we just discussed, in the final round of the fight, which is a boxing match, which tells me that this is super significant. With that being said, too, turning things back to Foxy, something really interesting happens with him. Now, this isn't beat for beat, bar for bar important, but the theming is quite curious because when Foxy uses his slow beam and then explains the mechanics of the slow fruit, you get this very oddly detailed breakdown of what the fruit is and how it's a undiscovered particle and this and that and that and this, right? This whole long drawn out explanation that's surprisingly intelligent and scientific for such a goofy character, right? You get this again with Luffy in Wano, because the five elders, in explaining what the actual nature of the gum gum fruit actually is, go through a very similar breakdown in saying, no, the gum gum fruit is a fake name. The real name of this fruit is the human fruit model Nika, a mythical Zoan type dough fruit that allows the person to become the sun deity who has the most ridiculous power in the world. And just pairing that to Foxy's explanation of the slow fruit just seems super similar to me, because in both instances we're getting this out of the box explanation of a very goofy ability. So the slow beam isn't just a pink laser, it's this undiscovered particle that slows down everything. Luffy doesn't have the funny dumb rubber fruit, but he is actually a deity of legend with the most ridiculous power in the world, and just so happens to be a living cartoon character. And I just think it's quite curious that both of these explanations are set in the way that they are in the series, which means there could be something more here than meets the eye. So yes, I do think Davy D. Jones was Joy Boy, and he was the previous user of the human fruit model Nika. Also, a bit of a side tangent here. In the way that the Davy backfight is set up, it seems like someone as dumb as Luffy would think up such a match in order to meet cool friends. Because it's super weird that this tradition exists and has so many goofy elements to it in a serious powered world like One Piece. So yeah, I think a dumb, stupid cartoon character thought this whole event up, which is fire. I think that's great. But anyway, with that being said, give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede. What?